Welcome to another video here on The Pulse. I hope you're having a good day. There's a new document that's going around that reveals a $105.3 million budget to build a pilot project called the Known Traveler Digital Identity, or the KTDI. To be clear, although this is going around a lot at the moment, there is not much new here in terms of this actual story. Canada's involvement with this particular project was never really a conspiracy theory, as a lot of people are saying at the moment, as they plainly posted this on their website way back in 2018, which included, the whole discussion that they were doing this in partnership with the World Economic Forum. I think probably at the time people just didn't really know about this particular project and became aware of it during COVID, as a lot of discussions around digital identity and these sorts of things became more of a discussion. So what is apparent, though, about this new document is what the budget is, which is $105.3 million over 5 years starting in 2021. And I think this is what a lot of people are talking about at the moment. The project itself, the KTDI, is a blockchain-based digital identity pilot project that is designed to make global travel easier and safer as the international travel industry grows by what is expected to be almost a billion more arrivals by 2030. This is according to the World Economic Forum, who came up with the whole idea of the project itself. So the program is going to feature biometric travel documents. These were defined by the Public Safety in Canada as electronic identification documents that use biometric identifiers such as facial recognition, amongst other things. So going back to the document itself, which was obtained by Conservative MP Dr. Leslyn Lewis, it says, this project is based on voluntary contributions from project partners. All project partners are responsible for their respective costs associated with participation. Project partners include the Government of Canada, the Government of Netherlands, Air Canada and Royal Dutch Airlines, Toronto, Montreal, and Schiphol International Airport, and the World Economic Forum. Now, the World Economic Forum says that they and their partners are currently piloting components of the KTDI concept in a real-life cross-border context to further enhance the concept and inform future pilots. The pilot learnings will also help inform the development of best practices and standards in collaboration with international regulatory and standard-setting bodies and industry. So I think it's important to note here that the Liberal government in Canada approved the secret culling of Canadian and foreigner biometric data all the way back in 2016. This occurred as they set up 31 cameras around Pearson International Airport in Toronto to collect facial recognition data from travelers that were entering the country. As stated in an article in the Globe and Mail, as travelers walked through the international arrivals border control area at Pearson's Terminal 3, 31 cameras captured images of their faces. Whenever the system returned a match against a 5,000 person list of previously deported people, a border officer would review the data and pass the traveler's information along to an officer on the terminal floor who would track the traveler down and pull them in to a secondary inspection. The article goes on to say, facial recognition has come under intense scrutiny in recent years. Experts have warned facial data, once collected, could lead to the permanent loss to a person's anonymity in public. Much like a fingerprint, a face is highly identifiable and can't easily be changed. At the time of this article, a gentleman by the name of Tamir Israel, who is a lawyer at University of Ottawa's Canadian Internet Policy and Public Interest Clinic, who has studied border agencies' use of facial recognition, had this to say about the particular project. This was deployed in a context where there was no public discussion in advance, with a technology that's known to have flaws in terms of both accuracy and, in particular, racial biases. In such a high-stakes environment, that's really concerning. And I think herein lies the issue that we saw with COVID-19 as well. There's no wide-scale discussion with the public and very little transparency about what's actually going on and where things are actually heading. Now, it's easier, it seems, for government to just not say much to the public, do whatever they want, and then spring it on the public later as like, hey, surprise, here's this project that we're doing. After all, that's exactly what the NSA did under the guise of, the national security of Americans when they decided they were going to spy on Americans without their knowledge. And of course, even after former NSA contractor Edward Snowden revealed that this was exactly what was going on behind America's back, it didn't stop. It's continuing today. So, the issue we're dealing with here with a lot of these technologies is that members of the public are going to have very, very different views about what to do with this stuff. A lot of people don't want to see their privacy continually go away and go away and go away under the guise of national security. A lot of people have different value-based and philosophical views on this, because ultimately, guess what? We're complex beings as humans, and we're going to feel different about things. Yet government just seems to be steamrolling over that complexity and saying, well, no, everybody should just think the same, and we know best, and just going to employ draconian ideas regardless of what the public has to say. And this is why I think there's a growing population of people who are realizing that those in positions of power have ultimately lost their way in doing what's right for people's well-being, and instead are just aligned with power and corporate interests. And ultimately, this is why this group of people is losing a lot of trust in government, and they're not really going to trust what government does from here on forward, because they have no reason to. They've seen over and over and over again that government is going to do things behind people's back and then just try and play stupid, like, oh yeah, maybe we didn't know, or you know what, it's for your well-being anyway. So hey, ultimately this leaves us in a really difficult position, but a very important moment for us as humans in any population. People that are within any population are going to be broken up into, multiple different views on what's coming here in terms of technologies, in terms of privacy, in terms of where we're going. And I think this particular conversation can extend to a lot of different ideas. But in particular, there are going to be people who are going to see these oncoming technologies of digital identity and being able to track everybody and do all these different things. Some people are going to see these as a good idea. They're going to be convinced that it's going to be helpful and it's necessary, for safety. On top of that, they might think that, there's no reason to not trust the government, regardless of how many times the government does something that is ultimately awful. And there's going to be another group of people. And that other group of people is going to look at it and say, well, hold on a second, maybe some of these technologies could be helpful, but in the hands of government, in the hands of, what government is currently doing today and how they're incentivized and how they abuse their power, I'm not comfortable at all with this technology, being used, right? And so you're going to ultimately have two very, very different perspectives that are led by very, very different worldviews. And all I have to say is good luck trying to get, these people on the same page to discuss this issue properly, when we can't even agree on basic facts about what government has done wrong in the past and what is incentivizing government at the moment, and how, or whether or not they're actually doing things that are in the well-being of people, or whether it's really more aligned with money and corporate power, which again is going to make this very, very difficult to talk about. And just as we saw with COVID, there's going to be one side of this discussion that's willing to say, hey, yeah, let's discuss this, let's debate this openly, while the other side is going to say, no, you guys are all conspiracy theorists, you're nuts, and let's just censor and shut down the discussion. Again, leading to why we have such a big challenge. And so I put this on the table for anybody at the end of the day. As Darth Vader would say, search your feelings. Can you honestly say that governments are working in the best interest of people? Does hiding information from people and secretly spying on them align with, a set of people who actually care about you? Wouldn't it be more forthcoming if this group of people said, hey, you know what? Here's what we're working on. What does everybody think about this? Let's discuss it together and decide what we might want to do about this. Let's get everybody's feelings. Maybe we'll even have like a countrywide vote on this particular issue of whether we want digital identity. So we can actually hear and people can actually have a say over what's going on. This to me would be the ingredients for a society that is run well, but that's not what's happening. Instead, the public is basically just, the government is basically just saying, well, the public doesn't get it, so we should make all the decisions for them in secret, and then we'll just tell them about it later. And so again, in my view, people have every reason to be weary of these technologies, especially in the hands of our current governments, when you consider that, the rise of authoritarian worldviews that drive government policy is really on display for us all to see, not to mention the fact that our existing economic structures incentivize destructive behavior that we're seeing all the time. I mean, just look at how social media functions. It doesn't matter whether something is true or false, or whether, the use of these technologies is healthy for people. All these social media engines care about is keeping people on their platform to make more money. Thus, they will trade harming, the public for greater profits, right? That's ultimately what's happening at the end of the day with social media and everything that's been revealed about how their algorithms work. This shouldn't be a surprise, because this is ultimately the incentive structure of how our society is currently set up. I mean, there's a bit of an illusion that, hey, everyone should just be able to do what's good and what's right, but our societal infrastructure, the way our systems work, does not incentivize good behavior most of the time. And this is why I think we ultimately have to go deeper in breaking this illusion that somehow our democracies are actually producing a good and thriving society. When did you get to vote, or for whether or not that you would give up all of your privacy? When did you have a direct say on this particular issue? The point is you didn't, and neither of us did. Electing people is simply an illusion that we have a say over what happens in our society so that we don't revolt. That's what democracy seems to be about in this particular stage of its life here in the Western world. It feels more like pacification than it is anything that actually gives us a say over what's happening in our world. But, let's hear your thoughts about this. Let me know in the comments below what you think about, this particular issue. And again, there are no black and white issues here that we're talking about. These are very, very challenging, and complex issues to talk about because a lot of people are going to have different perspectives. And if you think it is black and white, then I would challenge you to go listen to other people's perspectives about this issue of digital identity and what they think about it and whether they think it's necessary. Ultimately, I don't think we get very far by trying to force our ideas onto other people when we think, hey, we know the truth, therefore I know better and, I need to tell you. It's better to hear out other people's ideas. So remember to subscribe, pass this video on to somebody else, and that's it. That's all.